All right, welcome back to The Plank, presented by Ram. I'm Tom Corrin, along with John Sable. And let's face it, it was like being in a fantasy watching the Tampa Bay Buccaneers yesterday. Just beat up. It was a beatdown.
Beatdown, domination. Doug Martin, Jameis Winston. What? How many fantasy points do they have? I think I looked at my league. They combined both had over, I think, 70 points, if not more. We'll have to check with our fantasy guru, Matt McGuire, coming up.
And I would think they were, fairly cheap, right?
Yeah, I mean, Doug Martin's going to be on your team all year long. But Jameis Winston, that's the guy you're going to pick up on the waiver wire. And speaking of our fantasy guru, Matt McGuire, he will help you manage your fantasy football team every week right here on The Plank, presented by Ram. Let's head outside to Matt McGuire. And Matt, how did you do this weekend? Do you know what kind of points Doug Martin and Jameis Winston had combined? In my league, I think I had about 70. That sounds about right.
Yeah, that's pretty close. I mean, obviously scoring varies from league to league, but if you look at Winston, the 5 touchdowns alone is good for about 30 points, and Doug Martin over 200 yards should have been good for about another 32. So take Winston's yardage, add it to that. I think you're pretty close with 70. It was definitely a great fantasy football week for the Bucs. We're on to week 12 now, and the good news for fantasy football owners, that means no more bye weeks. So you'll have your full roster week in and week out to play with for the remainder of the year. But for the bad news, the injuries. There were some key injuries this week in fantasy football. You look at the Ravens, they lost Joe Flacco and Justin Forsett, their starting running back and starting quarterback, on top of Steve Smith, who went out a few weeks ago. So the Ravens have lost quarterback, running back, and wide receiver. We'll talk about what kind of opportunities that leaves for the Ravens offense. There was also a big injury to a guy we just talked about last week on the fantasy football segment here on The Plank with Charkandrick West, the running back for the Kansas City Chiefs. Last 4 weeks, no one had more points than he did at the running back position. He tweaked his hamstring early in the game, only had 16 yards this week. We'll check on his status as the week goes on. But like I said, always injury brings opportunity. And we'll talk first about the Chiefs. And with West being out, that brings opportunity for Spencer Ware. He came in and he filled in great for the Kansas City Chiefs. He had 11 carries, 92 yards, and 2 touchdowns. I expect him to be the guy if West can't go. They're listing West right now as day-to-day, so you're going to want to keep an eye on his injury. If for some reason West is out for the Chiefs, you're definitely going to want to play Spencer Ware this week. Another guy that you might want to look at, and Tom, you mentioned this earlier, a new beast mode in Seattle, and that's exactly right. Thomas Rawls. He's a rookie running back for the Seahawks, and with Marshawn Lynch out, he had a huge week against the 49ers. He had 30 carries, 209 yards, and 2 touchdowns, including some receiving. So he's definitely someone you're going to want to add if he's available in your league. If you already have him on your team, definitely get him in the lineup. News out of Seattle is that Lynch is heading to Philadelphia to see a specialist about a possible sports hernia that he may have. So he could be out for 4 to 6 weeks if he ends up going through with the surgery. Another guy that you're going to want to add if you need help at tight end is Vernon Davis. Now this is somebody who was huge in fantasy football last couple years, hasn't done anything probably the last 1 or 2 seasons, definitely off of everyone's radar. He got traded to the Broncos mid-season, and he's finally getting used to that offense out there in Denver. Had a nice week this week. He had 6 catches, 62 yards. There's a quarterback change, obviously, in Denver with Peyton Manning being out. So keep an eye on what's going on there at the quarterback situation. But Vernon Davis might be an impact player down the stretch run. And the last guy that I want to talk about, go back to those Baltimore Ravens, and that's Javarius Allen. He's the rookie running back out of USC that's filling in for Justin Forsett. Forsett broke his arm last week. He's done for the year. Allen came in, had a great week. He had 22 rushes for 67 yards, but he also got involved in the passing game. 5 catches for 48 yards. So he's somebody that you can add in your off the waiver wire. Should be available. That's Javarius Allen for the Baltimore Ravens. So that's all I've got here on Week 12 for the Fantasy Football Update. Back to you guys in the studio.
All right, thanks, man. I know a bunch of folks that that were in the fantasy football leagues were all ticked off because Seattle never really the impression was that Lynch was going to play in the game.
Right.
And Rawls was not, and so everybody kept Lynch on the roster, and next thing you know, just before game time, boom, and Rawls is sitting there as a backup, possibly picked up, but not activated, and they don't have the guy rolling.
Well, we're talking about a guy who's waiting in the wings, and you know how much longer, beast mode, Marshawn Lynch will be around, but that could be a great replacement long term. And, I just did the quick math in my league. Winston and Doug Martin combined for 73 total points. So no one in my league had both those players, but Matt's correct. Each league is different in how they score, and whether it's running back, PPR leagues or anything like that. But that is amazing to have that total there. All coming from 2 Buccaneers. So
Yeah, and the Buccaneers, by the way, got a pretty good look at their next opponent, the Indianapolis Colts, and them against the Atlanta Falcons.
they helped them out because they beat Atlanta yesterday.
They did, and
in the last second field
Ryan
goal.
just had an awful game, and in fact, I think Atlanta's lost 4 of their last 5 after they started out so impressively. But the thing is you go on the road, these AFC teams, they're not easy to beat.
And they're different style of football too. A lot of the times. I mean,
And plus Matt Hasselbeck. Come on, there's another backup guy. You know,
and
Luck's
how
gonna be
old is Matt Hasselbeck?
He's 100 years. No, he's not quite as old as I am. But does this guy? He's old enough to lose a lot of hair, and the fact is,
He's been bald for a while.
The guy is smart enough, though. The guy is smart enough to be able to orchestrate and manufacture an offensive football game that's not going to hurt the team.
Not only that, but that's what a savvy veteran can do. I mean, look what Josh McCown had done in Cleveland so far this year. I know he's not playing now because of his concussions, and they have Johnny Manziel playing, but look what McCown did. The Browns have a pretty good offensive line, even though they're struggling this year, and look what the numbers he was putting up, and it just shows how bad the Bucs' offensive line was last year. So all you need to have, if you have a good veteran quarterback, and you could even probably say the same thing about Mike Glennon. He's not as old as an experienced, but he's still serviceable. Yet to see the field this year. Probably won't. Knock on wood. Hopefully we don't have to see him on the field because Winston's playing so well. But quarterback play right now in the NFL as a starting position, first string, little low, I would say. But then you have guys coming in here, old veterans that are playing pretty well.
Yeah, one guy I also do not want to see be there at the end in a Colts uniform to try and win the football game is Adam Vinatieri. Man.
No.
This guy, he's the best.
He's automatic.
He's automatic. And just do not want to have that happen. And so the 2 old guys from the Colts take care of the Atlanta Falcons, which is a big thank you from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers as they head to Indianapolis next week. All right, when we come back, we're going to reveal who will walk the plank. We'll be back in a flash.